The setup, hip replacements, and hidden cameras. I want you to picture something for me. You are 73 years old. You have spent the last 40 years building a life that is genuinely yours. The house, the garden, the pool in the backyard that you saved up for through 2 decades of careful, stubborn budgeting. You earned every single tile on that deck, and then you go in for a scheduled hip replacement surgery because your body finally decided to cash in the miles. That is exactly where I was on the morning of June 14th. My name is Eleanor. My friends call me Ellie, and I am about to tell you the story of how a family of entitled strangers decided that my absence was their invitation. They threw a party in my backyard. They destroyed my property. They drank my wine. They posted it all over social media with smiley faces and little wave emojis. And they did it all while I was lying in a hospital bed, still in recovery. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, oh, it was probably just a misunderstanding. Maybe they asked. Maybe there was some miscommunication. I promise you, there was no misunderstanding. There was a broken lock, a crowbar, and 43 people in inflatable pool floats. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a decision. Grandma always said, the difference between an accident and a choice is the amount of planning involved. The Hargroves moved in next door 3 years ago. Brad and Melissa and their 2 teenage boys. Connor and Jackson, yes, those names. From the moment they arrived, I had a feeling. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet, familiar feeling. The kind you get when someone shakes your hand but does not quite meet your eyes. They borrowed my extension ladder in March of their first year, never returned it. I asked twice. Politely, Brad laughed it off and said he would get to it. 3 years later, that ladder was still in there. Gosh, I wrote it off. I am not petty. I am patient. But I was watching. And here is the thing about patient people. We notice everything. I had my surgery scheduled months in advance. The whole street knew about it because Melissa Hargrove made it her business to know everyone's business. She stopped me at the mailbox in May and asked, very sweetly, how long I would be gone. She said she was worried about me. She said she wanted to check on my garden while I was away. I told her my granddaughter Priya would be stopping by every few days. I thought I was being reassuring. I was actually giving her a schedule. While I was under the invasion Bagans, the surgery went well. That is the first thing I want to say, because my health is what matters most in this story, even if the legal drama is what brought you here. I went under on a Tuesday morning and woke up that afternoon in a recovery room that smelled of antiseptic and quietly beeping machines. My hip was repaired. My granddaughter Priya was sitting beside me, holding my hand. She looked worried. And it was not about the surgery. That is when I should have known something was wrong. Priya had driven past my house on her way to the hospital and noticed something odd. There were cars parked up and down both sides of my street. Pop music was drifting over the fence. She figured it was coming from somewhere else. She told herself she was imagining things. She did not want to stress me out right after surgery, so she said nothing. What she did not know yet was that at that exact moment, 43 people were in my backyard. They had coolers. They had a Bluetooth speaker. They had inflatable flamingos in my pool. They had my wine, which I had been collecting for 11 years, open on my patio table. And every single one of those 43 people had been invited by Brad and Melissa Hargrove, who had told them it was a private rental property. Grandma always said, a lie told with enough confidence starts to sound like the truth, but only for a little while. Here is what they did not account for. My Ring camera. I installed it 18 months ago after a package went missing from my porch. It covers the back gate, the patio, and a wide angle of the pool area. It records continuously and uploads to the cloud. I had not even thought about it when I left for the hospital, but that little camera was thinking about everything. While I was in post-op trying to remember what year it was, that camera was cataloguing faces, timestamps, and actions. It captured Brad Hargrove using what appears to be a crowbar to pop the padlock off my back fence gate at 9:47 in the morning. It captured Melissa directing people where to set up chairs. It captured a man I have never seen in my life carrying cases of my Pinot Noir out of my garage. They did not just use my space, they took my things. And then, because apparently 43 oblivious adults with inflatable pool toys were not enough of a disaster, Connor Hargrove posted a video to Instagram. He tagged the location. He used my actual street address as the location tag. The caption said something along the lines of, "Best pool party of the summer." He got over 300 likes before the evening was over. He was 17 years old, and he had just documented a felony for the entire internet. The hospital bed strategy session. Priya found out about the party at 6 in the evening, when her friend sent her a screenshot of Connor's Instagram post. She recognized the pool tiles immediately. She recognized the wine rack my late husband built by hand in 1987, now sitting half empty in the background of a teenager's vacation photo. She sat beside my hospital bed for a long moment before she said anything. When she finally showed me the phone, I did not cry. I did not yell. I looked at the screen very carefully. The way you look at something when you are deciding exactly how you feel about it. And that is when it hit me. I had every single thing I needed. Grandma always said, do not react in the moment. Reaction is for people who have not thought it through yet. I asked Priya to hand me my phone. Then I asked her to get me a notepad and a pen from her bag. The nurse came in and suggested I rest. I told her, very gently, that I was about to file a police report, and I would rest afterward. She looked at Priya. Priya shrugged. She knows me. I pulled up my Ring camera app first. The footage was all there, every single minute of it. I watched Brad crack that padlock and felt something cold and very clear settle in my chest. This was not a prank. This was not a neighborly overstep. This was trespassing, breaking and entering, property damage, and theft. Those are not my words. Those are the legal definitions, and I had 11 years of courtroom, television dramas, and one very sharp daughter-in-law who is also a paralegal to thank for knowing them. I called the non-emergency police line at 6:22 in the evening. I told the dispatcher my name, my address, and that I had video evidence of a break-in currently in progress. She asked me if I was home. I told her I was in a hospital bed recovering from hip surgery. There was a pause. Then she said, "Someone will be there shortly." 2 officers arrived at my property within 30 minutes. The party was still going. People were still in the pool. Brad Hargrove apparently told the officers that he had my permission. He said, and I want you to appreciate the audacity of this, that we had a verbal agreement. A verbal agreement with a woman who was in surgery all day. The officers called me directly. I was on speakerphone, in a hospital gown, with a bag of ice on my hip, walking them through timestamp by timestamp exactly what my camera had recorded. By the time I was done, Brad Hargrove had gone very quiet. Melissa was crying. Their guests were being asked for identification. My pool party had officially become a crime scene. The charges stack up, higher than they expected. Let me be very clear about what was damaged and what was taken, because this matters. This is not a story about hurt feelings. This is a story about real, documented, financial and legal consequences. My pool filtration system was destroyed, not worn down, not slightly damaged, destroyed. Someone had turned the pump setting to high and left it running without the proper water level maintained. The repair estimate came back at $12,000. My wine collection, 11 years of careful selection and occasional splurging, gone. Open bottles left on the patio, empty bottles left floating in the pool, 3 full cases missing entirely, which we can only assume were taken home by guests who thought it was a perk. The insurance appraiser put the total at $8,200. That is over $20,000 from one afternoon, from people who thought I would never know. Priya documented everything the following morning when she went to the house. She photographed the broken lock. She photographed the empty wine rack. She photographed the pool filter panel, which had its cover hanging off. She found cigarette burns on my teak patio furniture. She found food ground into the grout between my pool tiles. She found a pair of sunglasses and a child's sandal that did not belong to anyone I have ever met. Grandma always said, people show you exactly who they are when they think no one is looking. My camera was always looking. My daughter-in-law Rena, the paralegal I mentioned, drove to the hospital the next morning with a yellow legal pad and a very focused expression. We spent 2 hours going through everything. She made 3 separate piles of documentation: criminal charges, civil suit, and what she called the additional leverage pile, which was mostly Connor's Instagram video and several other posts from guests who had also tagged the location. The criminal charges filed included trespassing, breaking and entering, destruction of private property, and theft. Brad Hargrove was named on all counts. Melissa Hargrove on trespassing and theft. The man seen carrying my wine was identified from the camera footage and charged separately with theft. The civil suit was filed the following week. We sued for the full cost of repairs, replacement value of the wine, additional property damage, and emotional distress. The total figure in the complaint was $85,000. Brad Hargrove apparently laughed when his attorney told him. His attorney, I am told, did not laugh. But here is the thing. The legal process was only one part of what was coming. The internet does what the internet does. Rena had a thought on day 3. She said, Ellie, Connor's Instagram post is still up. He has not taken it down. I told her to screenshot every single version of it. Every comment, every tag, every like, before he had the chance to delete it. She had already done that. She sent the screenshots, along with a brief, factual description of events, to a local news journalist who had covered a similar neighborhood dispute the previous summer. The story ran online for days after the party. A 73-year-old woman recovering from hip surgery discovers neighbors threw an unauthorized pool party with 40-plus guests, caused $20,000 in damage, and documented it on social media. That headline wrote itself within 48 hours. It had been picked up by 2 regional outlets and 1 national aggregator. I should have seen it earlier. The Hargroves had left a very long trail of digital evidence, and the internet was very hungry that week. Brad Hargrove worked in regional sales management for a mid-size logistics company. His employer saw the coverage. His employer also saw him, clearly visible in my Ring camera footage, using a crowbar on my fence. His employer asked him to come in for a meeting on a Friday. He came out of that meeting without a job. The company issued a brief statement about values and conduct. Brad Hargrove was 39 years old and unemployed by the end of the week. Grandma always said, your reputation is a glass house. Be careful what you throw. Melissa Hargrove was a part-time administrator at a private school, not the same school her sons attended, a different one across town. The school saw the coverage. They saw Melissa on camera, standing in my yard, directing guests, smiling, completely at ease. She was asked to resign. She resigned. Connor and Jackson attended a private school on partial scholarship. The school has a conduct policy that applies to behavior outside of school grounds when that behavior is documented and involves criminal activity. Both boys were called before the disciplinary board. Both were asked to leave. The school refunded the portion of tuition already paid, which must have felt like a very small silver lining inside a very large disaster. 4 people, 1 afternoon, 1 broken padlock, a family unraveled. I want to be honest with you here. I did not set out to destroy the Hargrove family. I am not that kind of person, and I do not think that kind of satisfaction is actually satisfying. What I wanted was accountability. I wanted them to understand that a 73-year-old woman in a hospital bed is not a soft target. I wanted every decision they made to have a cost attached to it, because decisions should have costs. The judgment, the aftermath, and what Grandma would say. The civil case settled 9 months later. I did not have to go to trial, which I was quietly grateful for, because my hip was still recovering and I have better things to do than spend mornings in a courthouse. The settlement was for $85,000, the full amount we had originally claimed. Brad Hargrove's attorney negotiated a payment schedule, which told me everything I needed to know about the state of their finances by then. The criminal charges resulted in guilty pleas. Brad Hargrove pled guilty to breaking and entering and destruction of property. He received 2 years of probation, community service, and a fine. Melissa received a deferred judgment on the trespassing charge after completing a community service requirement. The man who took my wine cases received a theft conviction and paid restitution. And here is the part that still stays with me. About a month after the settlement, I received a letter, handwritten on plain white paper, from Melissa Hargrove. It was 3 paragraphs long. The first paragraph apologized. The second paragraph tried to explain, which I will be honest, I did not find very useful. The third paragraph said she hoped I could eventually find it in my heart to forgive them. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. Grandma always said, forgiveness is for you, not for them. It means you are putting down the weight. It does not mean you are handing it back. I have no idea where the Hargroves are now. They moved out of the house next door 8 months after the party. A young couple with a toddler moved in. They brought a casserole on their second day. I brought them a bottle of wine, a good one, from the collection I am rebuilding. My pool is perfect again. The filter hums quietly every evening. The teak furniture was refinished over winter. The new padlock on the back gate is a very serious piece of hardware. Priya helped me pick it out. She called it Grandma-approved maximum security. I told her that was probably overkill. She disagreed. I think about what I would tell someone going through something similar. Not necessarily a pool party. Any situation where someone assumes that your vulnerability gives them permission. Where they look at you and calculate what they can take. Here is what I would say. Document everything. Know your rights. Do not react out of anger because anger runs out of fuel. Act out of clarity. Clarity lasts as long as you need it to. And never underestimate a 73-year-old woman with a Ring camera and good internet. Grandma always said, the best revenge is a life that keeps going beautifully. Everything else is just paperwork. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. Until next time, stay patient, stay sharp, and never let anyone confuse your kindness for permission.